Lucas Vasquez knew all about split-second decisions. Every day was a lesson in triage: which bill to pay, which repair to postpone, which extra shift to take. But when he saw the small boy clutching his chest and gasping for air in the middle of Westfield Park, there was no decision to make at all. "Hey, buddy, you okay?" Lucas dropped his toolbox on the grass and knelt beside the panicking child, who couldn't have been more than 8 years old. The boy's lips were turning an alarming shade of blue as he struggled to speak. "Can't breathe." Lucas recognized the signs immediately. His daughter Mia had developed asthma after their apartment flooded last year, forcing them into temporary housing with questionable air quality. The memory of her first attack still haunted him. "Where's your inhaler?" Lucas asked calmly, though his heart was racing. "Is someone with you?" The boy weakly pointed to a small backpack a few feet away. Lucas grabbed it and quickly found the rescue inhaler inside. As he helped position it for the boy, he noticed a woman running toward them from across the park, absolute terror on her face. "Ethan." She called out, her designer heels sinking into the soft spring ground with each desperate step. "Ethan?" Lucas helped the boy take 2 puffs from the inhaler, coaching him through the breathing technique he'd practiced countless times with Mia. "That's it. In, hold, now out slowly." "You're doing great." By the time the woman reached them, the boy's breathing had begun to ease, though he still looked frighteningly pale. "What happened?" she demanded, dropping to her knees beside them, expensive suit be damned. Her dark hair had escaped its professional updo, and her wide brown eyes moved frantically between Lucas and her son. "Asthma attack," Lucas explained. "He's going to be okay. I found his inhaler in the backpack." The relief that washed over her face was palpable. "Thank you," she breathed, pulling her son into a gentle embrace. "I was just answering a call by the fountain. He was fine 1 minute, and then her voice cracked." "Mom, I'm okay," Ethan assured her, though his voice was raspy. Lucas smiled. "You've got a brave kid there." "I'm Tessa Harrington," she said, extending her hand. "And this is Ethan, Lucas Vasquez." He shook her hand, noting both the firmness of her grip and the softness of her skin. "My daughter has asthma too. I know how scary it can be." "You probably saved his life," Tessa said, her eyes now taking in Lucas fully his worn work boots, faded jeans, and the paint-spattered t-shirt that advertised Vasquez handyman services. "Just happened to be in the right place." Lucas gathered his toolbox. "I was heading to fix a leaky pipe in the apartment building across the street." "Are you a doctor?" Ethan asked, his breathing returning to normal. Lucas laughed. "No, just a dad. I fix things plumbing, electrical, whatever needs doing." Tessa pulled out a business card from her jacket pocket. "If there's ever anything I can do to thank you." Lucas glanced at the card before tucking it into his pocket. The embossed logo read Harrington Innovations with Tessa Harrington, CEO, beneath it. He tried not to look impressed, but something must have shown on his face. "It's just a title," she said with a dismissive wave. "Right now, I'm just a grateful mom." "Well, I should get going. That pipe won't fix itself." Lucas hoisted his toolbox. "Take care, Ethan. Remember, slow breaths." "Wait," Tessa called as he turned to leave. "Do you have time for coffee sometime? I'd like to thank you properly." Lucas hesitated. Between his full-time maintenance job at the community center, his side gigs, and raising 10-year-old Mia alone, he barely had time to breathe, let alone date especially not someone who was clearly from a different world than his. "I'm pretty booked up," he said apologetically. "Ethan has a follow-up with his pulmonologist next week," she persisted. "At Mercy Children's Hospital, they have a decent cafeteria." "My daughter goes there too," Lucas admitted, surprised by the coincidence. "Wednesday at 2, Lucas found himself nodding. "I might be able to swing that." As he walked away, he wondered what he'd just agreed to. He glanced back once to see Tessa helping Ethan to his feet, her arm protectively around his shoulders. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the distance, and Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time: hope. And that was more dangerous than any leaky pipe. "Dad, who are you texting?" Mia asked, peering over Lucas's shoulder as he prepared dinner 3 days later. "You never text." "Just confirming an appointment," Lucas replied, setting his phone down. He hadn't expected Tessa to actually message him, but she'd found his business number online and sent a friendly reminder about their coffee meeting tomorrow. "Is it a date?" Mia wiggled her eyebrows suggestively, making Lucas laugh despite himself. "No, smarty pants. It's a thank you coffee with a mom whose son I helped during an asthma attack." Mia hopped onto a stool at their small kitchen counter. "Like how you helped me." "Exactly like that." Lucas tousled her dark curls, so like her mother's. "How was school today, Mrs.?" "Patterson says I'm reading above grade level." Mia beamed with pride. "And I didn't need my inhaler once, even during gym. That's my girl." Lucas high-fived her before returning to the pasta sauce he was stirring. "Listen, about tomorrow, Mrs. Gonzalez will pick you up from school and bring you to the center until I'm done with work, okay? Can I bring my science project? The community room has better tables." "Sure thing." Lucas set 2 plates of spaghetti on their tiny dining table. "Just don't mix up any of those volcano chemicals near Mr. Wilson's chess club again." "That was one time," Mia protested with a giggle. As they ate, Lucas found himself wondering what Tessa and Ethan's dinner routine looked like. Probably not mismatched plates and reheated sauce in a cramped apartment. Tessa Harrington was the CEO of a company he'd had to Google. Apparently Harrington Innovations was a major biotech firm specializing in respiratory medical devices. The irony wasn't lost on him. After dinner and homework, after Mia was tucked into bed with a kiss on her forehead and her inhaler within reach on her nightstand, Lucas sat on their second-hand couch with a cup of tea and his scheduling book. He needed to reorganize his jobs for the week if he was going to fit in this coffee meeting. The community center was understanding about his need for flexibility, but his side jobs were what kept them afloat financially. Lucas ran a hand through his dark hair and sighed. 3 years since Alina's death, and he was still trying to find his footing as a single dad. The insurance money had helped initially, but medical bills had eaten through it quickly. Now it was just him, working every hour he could to give Mia stability and opportunities he'd never had. And yet here he was, rearranging his entire schedule for coffee with a woman who probably had assistants to manage her calendar. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself, but he knew the answer. There had been something in Tessa's eyes beyond gratitude of vulnerability that resonated with his own. Single parents recognized each other, he'd found, regardless of their circumstances. The next day, Lucas finished his shift at the community center early and changed into the cleanest shirt he had in his locker, a dark blue button-down he kept for parent-teacher conferences. He still had paint under his fingernails that wouldn't budge, but it would have to do. The hospital cafeteria was busy with the lunch crowd when he arrived. He scanned the room, not expecting to see Tessa yet, but there she was, sitting at a corner table, typing rapidly on a laptop. She wore a tailored gray dress that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but her hair was in a simple ponytail, and she was chewing absently on the end of a pen, a surprisingly human gesture that made her seem more approachable. Lucas took a deep breath and walked over. "Tessa." She looked up, and her professional demeanor instantly softened. "Lucas, you made it." She closed her laptop and stood to greet him. "Ethan's still with the doctor. I thought I'd get some work done while waiting." "How is he doing?" Lucas asked as they got in line for coffee. "Better, thanks to the new medication regimen. Dr. Bennett is amazing." "She's my daughter's doctor too," Lucas said, surprised again by the connection. "Mia swears Dr. Bennett has magic stethoscopes." Tessa laughed, a warm sound that drew glances from nearby tables. "Ethan says the same thing." "How old is your daughter?" 10 going on 30, Lucas replied with a proud smile. "She's correcting my grammar these days." They reached the counter, and before Lucas could protest, Tessa had paid for both their coffees. "This was my invitation," she insisted when he tried to object. Besides, you saved my son. Coffee is the least I can do. They found a quiet table away from the main traffic, and Lucas was struck by how easy it was to talk with Tessa. She asked thoughtful questions about Mia, about his work, genuinely interested in his answers. In turn, he learned that Ethan was 8, loved dinosaurs and robots, and had developed asthma after a severe bout of pneumonia last winter. Being a single mom and running a company is. Tessa paused, searching for the right word. Exhausting, Lucas offered. Exactly. Some days I feel like I'm failing at both jobs. Lucas nodded. I get that. After my wife died, there were days I wasn't sure how we'd make it to bedtime, let alone through the years ahead. Tessa's eyes softened. I'm so sorry about your wife. It's been 3 years. Car accident, Lucas said, the familiar pain dulled but never absent. Mia was 7. She still has nightmares sometimes. Ethan's father left when I was pregnant, Tessa admitted. He wasn't ready for a family, occasionally sends birthday cards from wherever his photography career takes him. Lucas felt a surge of anger on behalf of Ethan and Tessa. His loss, he said simply. Their conversation flowed naturally from there, discovering mutual interests in hiking, though Tessa admitted she rarely had time for it anymore, and cooking. Lucas proudly shared his grandmother's enchilada recipe that even picky Mia devoured. Dad, a voice interrupted them. Ethan bounded over, followed by a nurse. Dr. Bennett says my lungs sound better. That's great news, buddy, Tessa said, pulling him into a hug before introducing him properly to Lucas. Ethan's eyes widened in recognition. You're the park man, you helped me breathe. Lucas smiled. Glad to see you doing better. Are you a doctor now? Ethan asked, eyeing Lucas's button-down shirt with confusion. Nope, still just a dad who fixes things, Lucas replied. The nurse handed Tessa some paperwork. Dr. Bennett wants to see Ethan again in 2 weeks. She's also recommending that swimming class we discussed controlled exercise in a humid environment can help strengthen his lungs. Tessa's face fell slightly. Right, I'll look into that. Her tone was bright, but Lucas caught the worry behind it. He remembered researching similar programs for Mia and being shocked by the cost. After the nurse left, Lucas checked his watch reluctantly. I should head out. I have a job at 4. Of course. Tessa looked disappointed but understanding. Thank you for making time for this. It was my pleasure, Lucas said, and meant it. You know, the community center where I work has a heated indoor pool. They run an asthma-friendly swim program for kids. Mia's been going for months. It's really helped her breathing. Really? Tessa perked up. Is it? She seemed hesitant to ask about the cost. It's subsidized, Lucas said, understanding her unasked question. Very affordable. I can text you the information if you'd like. That would be wonderful, Tessa replied, relief evident in her voice. As Lucas stood to leave, Ethan tugged on his shirt. Do you know about robots? I'm building one for the science fair. Ethan, Tessa gently admonished, Mr. Vasquez needs to go to work. Actually, I know a little about electronics, Lucas said, crouching to Ethan's level. I used to fix arcade machines in college. Ethan's eyes lit up. Cool. Maybe you could help sometime. Before Lucas could respond, Tessa jumped in. That's not. I'd be happy to, Lucas surprised himself by saying. Maybe we could arrange a playdate with Mia. She's working on a science project, too. The hope in Ethan's face was impossible to resist, and Lucas found himself exchanging numbers with Tessa to plan a weekend meet-up. As he walked to his truck, he wondered if he was setting himself up for disappointment. Their worlds couldn't be more different. And yet, as he started his engine, his phone pinged with a text from Tessa. Thank you again for today. It's nice to meet someone who understands. Lucas smiled. Perhaps their worlds weren't so far apart after all. The following Saturday, Lucas checked his appearance in the bathroom mirror for the 3rd time, annoyed at himself for caring. They were meeting Tessa and Ethan at the community center's family science program, hardly a romantic setting. Still, he'd shaved carefully and worn his newest jeans. Dad, you look fine, Mia said, appearing in the doorway with her project materials in a tote bag. "Can we go now? I want to show Ethan my volcano design." "You've never even met Ethan," Lucas pointed out, amused by her enthusiasm. Mia rolled her eyes in that preteen way she'd recently perfected. "But you said he likes science, and he has asthma like me, and his mom is pretty." "I never said his mom was pretty," Lucas protested, though of course Tessa was beautiful. "You didn't have to," Mia said with alarming perception. "You keep checking your phone and you actually used cologne." Lucas sighed dramatically. "When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart," Mia declared. "You're just finally noticing." They arrived at the community center 15 minutes early. Lucas had arranged for them to use the craft room, which was already set up with tables for the Saturday science program. As the maintenance supervisor, he had keys and access, even on weekends, one of the job perks that made up for the modest salary. Will they know where to go? Mia asked, arranging her volcano materials just so. "I texted Tessa detailed directions," Lucas assured her, helping to set out additional supplies. He'd gathered odds and ends that might be useful for Ethan's robot project: spare wires, small motors from defunct toys, battery packs. At exactly 10 o'clock, they heard voices in the hallway. Lucas opened the door to find Tessa consulting a hand-drawn map while Ethan bounced excitedly beside her, carrying a shoebox full of robot parts. "We found it," Ethan announced triumphantly. "Your map was very precise," Tessa said with a smile that did something strange to Lucas's stomach. Today, she wore jeans and a simple sweater, her hair in a loose braid. She looked younger, more relaxed than in her business attire. "Welcome to Science Headquarters," Lucas said, stepping aside to let them enter. "Mia's been looking forward to meeting you both." Mia approached with uncharacteristic shyness, but it lasted only seconds before she and Ethan were deep in conversation about eruption catalysts and servo motors. The adults exchanged amused glances over their heads. "I brought coffee," Tessa said, offering Lucas a to-go cup from an upscale cafe. "I wasn't sure how you take it." "Black is perfect, thank you." Their fingers brushed during the exchange, and Lucas felt a jolt of awareness that he quickly suppressed. "So, CEO on weekdays, science mom on weekends?" Tessa laughed. "Something like that, though truthfully, the CEO part often bleeds into weekends too." She gestured to her tote bag, which Lucas noticed held a tablet and what looked like scientific journals. "I brought work, just in case." "In case what?" "The kids bore you with their volcanic robotics fusion," Lucas teased. "In case I felt awkward," she admitted, surprising him with her honesty. "It's been a while since I've had a playdate." Lucas leaned against the craft table. "Me too. Usually, weekends are for catching up on household repairs and laundry, glamorous single-parent life." "I know that life well. Minus the repairs, I'm hopeless with tools." "Last month, I needed YouTube tutorials to change a light bulb." Lucas raised an eyebrow. The CEO of a biotech company needed help with a light bulb. Shameful, isn't it? Tessa's eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. "I can sequence genomes, but basic household maintenance eludes me." "We all have our talents," Lucas said. "I can rewire a house, but ask me about genomes and I'm lost." Their conversation flowed easily as they supervised the children's projects. Lucas helped Ethan troubleshoot his robot's motor connections, while Tessa turned out to have an unexpected knack for papier-mâché volcano construction. The morning passed quickly, filled with laughter and the satisfaction of seeing their children work together so well. "They're like old friends already," Tessa observed during a quiet moment. Lucas nodded. "Sometimes kids just click. No overthinking, no baggage, just I like you, let's play." "If only adults could be so straightforward," Tessa said softly, her eyes meeting his. The moment was interrupted by Ethan's excited shout as his robot successfully moved across the table. Celebrations ensued, with high fives all around. Lucas noticed how Tessa watched her son with unbridled joy, temporarily free from whatever CEO concerns normally occupied her mind. After they cleaned up the craft room, Lucas suggested they check out the center's small cafe for lunch. As they walked through the building, he found himself unconsciously giving Tessa a tour, pointing out the programs and services offered. "This place is amazing," she said as they passed bulletin boards advertising everything from ESL classes to senior fitness programs. "I had no idea community centers offered so much. It's a lifeline for a lot of people," Lucas explained, "including us, especially after Alina died. Mia needed community, and I needed affordable childcare." They found a table in the cafe, and the kids immediately resumed their animated conversation about their next scientific collaboration. Lucas couldn't help but notice how Tessa kept glancing around the center with increasing interest. "What?" he finally asked. "I'm just thinking." She began hesitantly. "Harrington Innovations has a community grant program. We typically fund medical research, but we've been looking to expand into community health initiatives. Something like your asthma swim program would be perfect." Lucas blinked in surprise. "Are you serious?" "Absolutely. Our mission is improving respiratory health outcomes. That doesn't just happen in hospitals and labs." Tessa's professional demeanor briefly surfaced. "Would your director be open to discussing a potential partnership?" "Maria would probably name the building after you," Lucas joked, though he was touched by Tessa's genuine interest in his workplace. Their lunch extended into the afternoon as the children discovered the center's game room, giving the adults more time to talk. Lucas learned that Tessa had started her company after graduating from MIT, building on research she'd begun as an undergraduate. She'd grown it from a 3-person startup to a respected industry leader with over 200 employees. "Impressive," Lucas said sincerely. "My career path has been a bit less linear." "Tell me," Tessa encouraged, genuinely interested. Lucas shared how he'd worked construction through college, intending to become an architect, but had to leave school when Alina got pregnant with Mia. "Plans change," he said without bitterness. "I've always been good with my hands, so I found ways to make it work. The maintenance supervisor job here is steady, and my side gigs fill in the gaps." "You should be proud," Tessa said. "You've created a good life for Mia." Her words warmed something in Lucas that had been cold for a long time. When they finally parted ways that afternoon, the children extracted promises from their parents for another meeting soon. Lucas watched Tessa help Ethan buckle into her modest SUV, not the luxury vehicle he might have expected from a CEO. "She drives a mom car," he observed to Mia as they walked to their own aging truck. "Dad, are you going to ask Miss Harrington on a date?" Mia asked bluntly. "What? No, why would you think that?" "Because you like her," Mia stated as if it were obvious, "and she likes you, and Ethan is cool." Lucas helped Mia into the truck. "It's complicated, sweetie." "Adults always say that when they're scared," Mia replied sagely, leaving Lucas wondering when exactly his daughter had become so perceptive about matters of the heart. The next morning, Lucas woke to a text from Tessa with a photo of Ethan proudly displaying his robot. "He hasn't stopped talking about yesterday. Thank you for your help." Lucas smiled and replied with a picture Mia had drawn of both kids with their science projects. "Science team in the making." Mia says we need a rematch soon. Over the following weeks, what started as occasional texts about the children evolved into daily conversations. Lucas found himself sharing the small victories of his day, fixing a particularly challenging plumbing issue, Mia acing a math test, and Tessa reciprocated with stories about corporate negotiations, and Ethan's latest dinosaur obsession. They arranged more meetings. A Sunday at the park where the kids flew kites while Lucas and Tessa talked for hours. An afternoon at the museum where Lucas impressed Tessa with his knowledge of architectural history. A rainy day movie marathon at the community center's family program where their hands accidentally touched in the popcorn bowl, lingering longer than necessary. Each time, Lucas found himself more drawn to Tessa's combination of brilliance and vulnerability, her dedication to both her work and her son. But he kept a careful distance, acutely aware of the gulf between their circumstances. She ran a multimillion-dollar company. He lived paycheck to paycheck. She attended galas and board meetings. He fixed toilets and leaky faucets. One evening, about a month after their first meeting, Lucas was helping Mia with homework when his phone rang with Tessa's number. "Lucas." Her voice was tense. "I'm so sorry to bother you, but our apartment's heating system is malfunctioning and the building manager can't come until tomorrow." "With Ethan's asthma, what's the address?" Lucas interrupted, already reaching for his tool belt. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. After arranging for Mrs. Gonzalez to watch Mia, Lucas drove to the address Tessa had given him. He'd expected an upscale high-rise, but instead found himself at a modest apartment building in a middle-class neighborhood. Tessa buzzed him in immediately. "Thank you so much for coming," she said as she opened her apartment door. She looked different in her home-setting hair in a messy bun, wearing yoga pants and a faded university sweatshirt. The apartment behind her was comfortable but far from luxurious. Lucas must have looked surprised because Tessa smiled wryly. "Not what you expected from a CEO?" Lucas hesitated. "I reinvest most profits back into research," she explained, leading him to the heating unit. "And I'm putting away for Ethan's college. This is plenty for us." Lucas felt something shift inside him as he realized he'd been making assumptions about her life based on her title, just as people often did about him based on his work clothes. The heating issue turned out to be relatively simple: a clogged filter and a loose connection. As Lucas worked, Ethan emerged from his room, excited to show him a new robot design. The boy's bedroom was filled with books, science kits, and dinosaur models, much like Mia's room at home. After the heating was fixed, and Ethan had returned to his homework, Tessa insisted on making Lucas tea as thanks. They sat at her kitchen counter, the domesticity of the scene striking Lucas forcefully. "So this is the CEO lair," he teased gently, gesturing to the ordinary apartment with its stack of mail on the counter and child's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator. Tessa laughed. "Disappointing, right? No marble floors or personal chef." "It's nice," Lucas said sincerely. "It feels like a home." "It is." Tessa stirred her tea thoughtfully. "The company sounds more glamorous than it is. We're doing well now, but it was a struggle for years. I started it when Ethan was a baby, working from a studio apartment with him in a playpen beside my desk." Lucas realized she was sharing this deliberately, wanting him to understand that her path hadn't been as privileged as he might have assumed. The gesture touched him deeply. "We have more in common than I thought," he admitted. Tessa met his eyes. "I've been thinking that for weeks." The moment hung between them, full of possibility, until Ethan called from his room with a homework question. The spell broken, Lucas stood to leave. "I should get back to Mia," he said reluctantly. At the door, Tessa placed her hand on his arm. "Lucas, the community center is having that family dance next weekend. Would you and Mia like to join us?" The invitation was clearly about more than just the children, and they both knew it. Lucas hesitated only briefly before nodding. "We'd like that very much." The night of the community center's spring family dance arrived with an unexpected complication: a massive rainstorm that flooded the center's gymnasium where the event was to be held. As maintenance supervisor, Lucas was called in early to help with emergency cleanup. "Dad, we can't miss the dance," Mia lamented as they rushed to the center through the downpour. "I bought a new dress with my allowance." "We're not missing it," Lucas assured her, though he was less certain as they entered to find 2 inches of water covering the gym floor. "We're just going to help fix things first." For the next 2 hours, Lucas directed volunteers with mops and wet vacuums while the center's director, Maria, frantically called around for an alternative venue. Mia helped by entertaining the younger children who had arrived early with their parents, keeping them away from the cleanup efforts. Just as they were making headway, Tessa and Ethan arrived. Ethan immediately joined Mia's impromptu storytime group, while Tessa took in the scene with wide eyes. "Slight flooding issue," Lucas explained ruefully, his jeans soaked to the knees. The dance might be canceled. To his surprise, Tessa immediately took off her raincoat and handed her purse to Ethan. Where do you need help? For the next hour, the CEO of Harrington Innovations moved furniture, mopped floors, and helped Lucas reroute extension cords to set up fans. She worked as efficiently as any of his crew, her determination matching his own. When Maria announced that no alternative venue was available, Tessa pulled her aside for a brief, intense conversation. 10 minutes later, Maria announced with relief that the dance would proceed in the center's multi-purpose room. Thanks to an emergency donation from Harrington Innovations for additional cleanup equipment, she added, giving Tessa a grateful nod. As volunteers transformed the multi-purpose room with the decorations salvaged from the gym, Lucas found a moment alone with Tessa in the supply closet where they were gathering tablecloths. You didn't have to do that, he said. Do what? Help clean? Tessa shrugged. I'm not afraid of a little water. I meant the donation. Tessa met his eyes steadily. The kids were looking forward to this dance, so was I. The simplicity and honesty of her statement touched him. Impulsively, he reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Her skin was warm beneath his fingers. Thank you, he said softly. Lucas, she began, then hesitated. I want you to know that Dad, Miss Harrington, Mia's voice called from outside the closet. Maria says we need those tablecloths now. The moment broken, they gathered the supplies and returned to the preparations. By 7 o'clock, the multi-purpose room had been transformed with string lights, balloon arches, and a makeshift dance floor. Children in their party clothes excitedly lined up at the snack table while parents chatted around the edges of the room. Mia twirled in her new dress, a simple blue cotton garment she'd saved for weeks to buy. Do I look okay? She asked anxiously. You look beautiful, Lucas assured her, his throat tight with emotion. She was growing up so fast, looking more like Alina every day. Across the room, Tessa was straightening Ethan's clip-on tie. She had somehow managed to change into a simple green dress that made her eyes shine even across the distance. When she caught Lucas watching, she smiled, and the warmth of it reached him even through the crowded room. The DJ, a teenage volunteer from the center's youth program, started the music with an upbeat pop song that sent the children rushing to the dance floor. Lucas watched as Mia grabbed Ethan's hand, pulling him into the group dance forming in the center of the room. Tessa made her way to Lucas's side. Crisis averted, she said, nodding to the jubilant children. Thanks to you, Lucas replied. You're good in an emergency. So are you. I've seen that firsthand. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their children dance with abandon. When the music switched to a slower song, Tessa turned to him with a raised eyebrow. I believe I was promised a dance, she said, extending her hand. Lucas hesitated only briefly before taking it. I should warn you, I haven't danced since Ms. School father-daughter dance last year. I'll risk it. They moved onto the dance floor, joining other parent couples. Lucas placed his hand respectfully at her waist, maintaining a proper distance between them. But as the music continued, they gradually moved closer until Tessa's head rested lightly against his shoulder. She fit perfectly against him, as if they'd been dancing together for years. This is nice, she murmured. Yes, Lucas agreed, his heart beating faster as her fingers entwined with his. It is. From across the room, Lucas caught Mia watching them with undisguised delight, whispering something to Ethan that made the boy grin. Lucas should have felt self-conscious, but instead, he felt a sense of rightness that had been absent from his life for too long. As the evening progressed, Lucas and Tessa danced several more times, talked with other parents, and supervised the children's activities. They functioned as a team naturally, anticipating each other's needs and sharing knowing glances across the room. By the time the dance ended, something fundamental had shifted between them. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the spring night clean and star-filled. Lucas offered to walk Tessa and Ethan to their car, Mia skipping ahead with Ethan, both children tired but happy. "Tonight was perfect," Tessa said as they reached her SUV, "despite the flood." "Maybe because of the flood," Lucas suggested. "Nothing brings people together like a crisis." Tessa laughed. "Is that your life philosophy?" "It's working so far," he replied, gesturing between them with a smile. After the children were settled in the car, Lucas closed Ethan's door to give them a moment of privacy. Standing in the parking lot under the security lights, Tessa looked up at him with an expression that made his breath catch. "Lucas, I'd like to see you again," she said directly. Not just for the kids, not just as friends. The honesty of her statement eliminated any need for pretense. "I'd like that too," he admitted. "But Tessa, our worlds are very different. Are they?" She gestured toward their children in the car. "We're both single parents trying our best. We both work hard, we both put our kids first." She stepped closer. "The rest is just details." When she put it that way, the barriers he'd constructed between them seemed arbitrary and self-imposed. Still, he hesitated. "What are you afraid of?" she asked gently. "That I'm not enough," Lucas admitted, the truth surprising even himself. "Your world—" "Stop telling me about my world," Tessa interrupted firmly. "I know my world, and I want you in it." The directness of her statement left no room for doubt. Lucas reached out, cupping her face gently in his hands. When he kissed her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, as if they'd been moving toward this moment since that first day in the park. The kiss was brief, but full of promise. When they parted, Tessa's smile held the same wonder he felt. From inside the car came the sound of children's giggles and exaggerated cheering. "Our audience approves," Lucas noted wryly. "They've been conspiring for weeks," Tessa replied. "Ethan's been asking when Mr. Lucas would come for dinner." "Mia's been just as subtle," Lucas said. "She's already planning summer activities for the four of us." Tessa's expression grew more serious. "Is that something you want, the four of us?" Lucas took her hand, marveling at how right it felt in his. "Yes," he said simply. "It is." As he watched Tessa drive away, Mia sleepily leaning against him, Lucas felt a sense of possibility that had been absent from his life for too long. Whatever challenges lay ahead, and there would be many, they seemed less daunting with the memory of Tessa's kiss and the promise of what might come next. The following weeks unfolded with a new rhythm to Lucas's life. Between his work at the community center, his handyman jobs, and parenting Mia, he now carved out time for Tessa. They had dinner at her apartment, where he taught Ethan and Tessa how to make his grandmother's enchiladas. She brought lunch to the community center on his break, impressing his coworkers with her lack of pretension. Their relationship developed slowly, both of them cautious about involving their children too quickly. But Mia and Ethan had other ideas, constantly engineering reasons for the families to spend time together. One Sunday afternoon in May, about 2 months after they'd met, the four of them were hiking at a nearby state park. The children had raced ahead on the trail, leaving the adults to walk at a more leisurely pace. "I have something to tell you," Tessa said, taking Lucas's hand as they crossed a wooden footbridge. "The community grant for the center's asthma swim program was approved yesterday. Full funding for 3 years. Lucas stopped walking. "Tessa, that's incredible. Maria will be ecstatic." "There's more," she continued, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "The board was so impressed with the program that they want to expand it to other community centers across the city. They've asked me to head the initiative personally." "That's wonderful," Lucas said, genuinely happy for her. "It would mean more regular hours," Tessa explained. "Less travel, more time with Ethan." She squeezed his hand. "More time for us." The implication was clear. She was reorganizing her life to make room for their relationship. The gesture touched Lucas deeply. "Are you sure that's what you want?" he asked. Tessa looked at him directly, her eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees. "I've spent 8 years building my company, Lucas. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but somewhere along the way I forgot how to build a life." Her voice softened. Being with you reminds me of what I've been missing. Lucas pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed by emotion. I'm not used to being someone's priority, he admitted. Get used to it, Tessa whispered before kissing him. They were interrupted by Ethan's urgent call from up the trail. Mom, Lucas, come quick. Mia's having trouble breathing. They ran to find Mia sitting on a log, wheezing audibly, her face pale. Lucas knelt beside her, his heart racing with familiar fear. Inhaler, he asked calmly, though his hands shook as he helped her find it in her small backpack. Already, used it, Mia gasped. Not helping. Tessa immediately took charge. Ethan, give me your inhaler too, she instructed, her CEO efficiency channeled into crisis management. Lucas, we need to get her back to the car. The ranger station has oxygen. Lucas lifted Mia into his arms, her small body frighteningly light. As they hurried back down the trail, Tessa called ahead to the ranger station while Ethan ran ahead to guide them. Their teamwork was instinctive, born of shared experience with childhood asthma. At the ranger station, the emergency medical technician administered oxygen while they waited for the ambulance. Lucas held Mia's hand, fighting his own rising panic. You're doing great, sweetie, he assured her, though his voice cracked with fear. Help is coming. Tessa stood behind him, her hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. When the ambulance arrived, she efficiently answered the paramedics' questions about Mia's medical history, allowing Lucas to focus solely on comforting his daughter. I'll drive Ethan to the hospital and meet you there, Tessa told Lucas as he climbed into the ambulance with Mia. At the hospital, Lucas paced the emergency room waiting area while doctors treated Mia's severe asthma attack. When Tessa and Ethan arrived, they brought him coffee and sat with him through the anxious waiting. Ethan quietly showed Lucas the breathing exercises his respiratory therapist had taught him, demonstrating them earnestly as if offering a precious gift. Finally, a doctor emerged to report that Mia was stabilized and would need to stay overnight for observation. When Lucas was allowed to see her, Tessa hung back, giving them privacy, but Mia called out for her. Miss Harrington, can you come in too? Tessa entered the room hesitantly. Mia looked small in the hospital bed, an oxygen monitor clipped to her finger and in Roman 4 in her arm, but her color was returning to normal. The doctor says I had an acute exacerbation, Mia announced, pronouncing the medical term carefully. That's what happened to me last winter, Ethan said, perching on the edge of the bed. It's scary, but you'll be okay. Did I ruin the hike? Mia asked anxiously. Not at all, Lucas assured her, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. We can go again when you're feeling better. With better inhalers, Tessa added, then looked apologetically at Lucas. I don't mean to overstep, but Harrington has a new prototype rescue inhaler with a more efficient delivery system. It's in final clinical trials, but I could arrange for Mia to be included. Yes, please, Mia interrupted before Lucas could respond. I want the fancy science inhaler. Later, after Mia had fallen asleep and Ethan was engrossed in a game on Tessa's phone, Lucas and Tessa stepped into the hallway to talk. I'm sorry if I overstepped about the inhaler, Tessa said immediately. I just couldn't stand seeing her struggle like that when we might have something that could help. You didn't overstep, Lucas assured her, taking her hand. You were amazing today, Tessa. I don't know what we would have done without you. That's what partners do, she said simply. They show up. The word partners hung between them, new but fitting. Lucas pulled her into a tight embrace, allowing himself to release some of the fear he'd been holding since Mia's first gasp on the trail. Tessa held him just as tightly, understanding without words the terror of watching your child struggle to breathe. You should go home, Lucas said eventually. Get Ethan to bed. I'll stay with Mia. We brought you an overnight bag, Tessa said, nodding toward the waiting room where her tote sat beside Ethan. Toothbrush, change of clothes, phone charger, and Mia's stuffed rabbit. Ethan insisted she'd want it. The thoughtfulness of the gesture nearly undid Lucas. Thank you, he managed, his voice rough with emotion. Tessa reached up to cup his face gently. "Call me if anything changes. I'll bring breakfast in the morning." As he watched her guide a tired Ethan toward the elevator, Lucas realized that somewhere in the midst of their cautious dating, they had become a unit, not just Lucas and Tessa, but a foursome, looking out for each other's needs without being asked. The next morning, true to her word, Tessa arrived with breakfast for both Lucas and Mia, who was feeling much better and eager to be discharged. The doctor who examined her mentioned a specialized asthma management program at the hospital. "It's excellent," he explained, "but there's usually a waiting list." "She'll have a spot," Tessa said with quiet authority. When the doctor looked at her questioningly, she added, "Harrington Innovations funds the program. I'll make a call." On the drive home from the hospital, Mia fell asleep in the backseat of Tessa's SUV. Lucas watched the rhythmic rise and fall of his daughter's chest, grateful for each unremarkable breath. "Thank you," he said quietly to Tessa. "Not just for the program spot, but for everything yesterday." For being there. Tessa glanced away from the road briefly to meet his eyes. "Lucas, I need you to understand something. Yes, I have resources and connections through my company. I want to use those to help Mia, not because I'm trying to buy your affection or solve your problems, but because I care about her, about both of you." "I know that," Lucas assured her, reaching across to squeeze her hand. "And I'm not too proud to accept help when Mia needs it." "Good," Tessa said, relieved, "because I have another idea I want to discuss, but I wasn't sure how you'd feel about it." "Go on," Lucas encouraged, curious. "The asthma swim program at the center is getting more enrollments than expected. Maria mentioned they need another instructor with lifeguard certification." Tessa paused. "You mentioned you were a competitive swimmer in high school and you already work at the center." Lucas considered the idea. "I'd need to get recertified as a lifeguard." "The company would cover the training costs as part of the program grant," Tessa explained, "and it would mean a pay increase." Lucas was quiet for a moment. The offer made practical sense, but he was acutely aware of the power imbalance it created. "Tessa, I don't want to be one of your employees." "You wouldn't be," she clarified quickly. "The position reports to Maria, not me or the company. We're just funding the program." "Let me think about it," Lucas said, not wanting to make a decision while emotionally drained from his health scare. Tessa nodded, understanding his hesitation. "Of course. No pressure." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, Mia's soft breathing the only sound. As they neared Lucas's apartment building, he made a decision. "Would you and Ethan like to stay for dinner tonight? Nothing fancy, probably just pasta." "But Mia would love the company, and so would I." Tessa's smile was answer enough. "We'd love to." That evening, as the four of them sat around Lucas's small dining table eating spaghetti, the conversation flowed easily. Mia and Ethan planned their science fair projects, while the adults discussed summer activities and the upcoming community center fundraiser. It felt remarkably normal, as if they'd been sharing meals for years instead of weeks. After dinner, the children retreated to Mia's room to read, leaving Lucas and Tessa to clean up. As they stood side by side at the sink, Lucas washing while Tessa dried, he found himself imagining more evenings like this, ordinary moments transformed by shared affection. "What are you thinking about?" Tessa asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. "That I could get used to this," Lucas admitted. "Dinner, dishes, normal life, with you." Tessa set down the dish towel and turned to face him. "I'd like that," she said softly. Lucas pulled her into his arms, marveling at how naturally she fit there. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home after a long journey, familiar and new all at once. The sound of giggling from the doorway broke them apart. Mia and Ethan stood watching with identical expressions of delight. "Does this mean your boyfriend and girlfriend?" Ethan asked hopefully. Lucas and Tessa exchanged amused glances. "Yes," Tessa answered, her eyes never leaving Lucas's face. "I think it does." "Finally," Mia exclaimed dramatically. "We've been waiting forever." "Forever, huh?" Lucas raised an eyebrow at his daughter. It's been 2 months. That's like a million years in kid time, Ethan explained seriously, making the adults laugh. Later, after Tessa and Ethan had gone home with promises to meet for breakfast the next day, Lucas tucked Mia into bed with extra care, the hospital scare still fresh in his mind. I like them, Mia said sleepily as he adjusted her pillows. Ethan's like the brother I always wanted. Lucas smoothed her hair back from her forehead. They're pretty special, aren't they? Tessa looks at you the way Mom used to, Mia observed, her insight catching Lucas off guard. Like you're her favorite person. A lump formed in Lucas's throat. You noticed that, huh? Mia nodded, her eyelids growing heavy. Mom would be happy you found somebody. She always said everybody needs somebody to love. As Lucas kissed his daughter's forehead and turned out her light, he felt a weight lift from his heart. For 3 years, he'd put his life on hold, focusing solely on providing for Mia. He'd convinced himself that was enough. But Mia's words reminded him of something essential. Elena wouldn't have wanted him to stop living. And with that realization came another, equally powerful. He was falling in love with Tessa Harrington, CEO and single mom, who looked at him like he was her favorite person in the world. The next morning, Lucas called Maria at the community center. I'd like to apply for that swim instructor position, he told her. I think it's a perfect fit. Over the following months, Lucas and Tessa's relationship deepened. Summer arrived, bringing warm evenings spent on Tessa's small balcony after the children were asleep, talking about everything and nothing. Lucas completed his lifeguard certification and began teaching the asthma swim classes, finding unexpected fulfillment in helping children manage their condition through exercise. Tessa reorganized her work schedule to be home most evenings, delegating more responsibilities to her management team. She brought Ethan to Lucas's swim classes, watching with pride as both her son and Mia became stronger swimmers and their breathing improved. The 4 of them fell into an easy routine. Weeknight dinners at one apartment or the other, weekend adventures to museums or parks, and quiet moments that built the foundation of their blended family. Lucas found himself staying later at Tessa's apartment each visit, reluctant to leave the comfort they'd created together. One evening in late July, after the children had exhausted themselves at the community center's summer festival and fallen asleep watching a movie, Lucas and Tessa sat on her couch, his arm around her shoulders as she leaned against him. I've been thinking, Tessa said, her fingers intertwined with his. The lease on my apartment is up in September. Are you looking for a new place? Lucas asked. Tessa took a deep breath. I'm considering it, but what I really want. She hesitated. This might be too soon, but it feels right. What if we found a place together? Something with enough room for all 4 of us. Lucas was quiet, processing the enormity of what she was suggesting. The kids are already at the same school, Tessa continued quickly. We spend most of our time together anyway. It would make logistics easier, and yes, Lucas interrupted softly. Tessa looked up at him, surprised by his immediate answer. Yes, I was thinking the same thing, he admitted. I just wasn't sure how to bring it up. Tessa's smile was radiant. Really? Really, Lucas confirmed, pulling her closer. It feels right to me, too. They spent the next hour talking through practicalities, neighborhoods, budgets, what the children might think. Tessa was adamant that they find a place they could afford together without her income skewing the arrangement. I want us to be equal partners in this, she insisted. I don't want you to ever feel like it's not your home, too. Lucas appreciated her sensitivity to his pride, even as he recognized it was something he needed to work through. We'll find the right balance, he promised. The next day, they told the children over breakfast. Instead of the excitement they expected, Mia and Ethan exchanged worried glances. What's wrong? Lucas asked, concerned by their reaction. We thought you'd be happy about this. Will we still get to see each other every day? Ethan asked anxiously. That's the whole point, Tessa explained. We'd all live together in one house. Like a real family? Mia asked, hope creeping into her voice. Exactly like a real family, Lucas confirmed, because that's what we're becoming. The children's excitement exploded then, full of questions about bedrooms and backyards, and whether they could get a dog. In the midst of their enthusiasm, Lucas caught Tessa's eye across the table. The love he saw there mirrored his own, steady and certain. House hunting proved more challenging than expected. Finding a place that met their needs: 4 bedrooms, good school district, reasonable commute for both adults, affordable on their combined income, took weeks of searching. Lucas insisted on contributing equally to the rent or mortgage, which limited their options. One Saturday in August, they visited a modest house in a family-friendly neighborhood. It needed some cosmetic updates: outdated kitchen cabinets, worn carpeting, a backyard that had seen better days but the structure was sound, and it had the space they needed. "I could fix most of this myself," Lucas observed as they walked through the rooms, the children already claiming bedrooms and planning decorations. New paint, refinish the floors instead of replacing them, update the fixtures. Tessa watched him assessing the property with a professional eye. "Would it be worth the investment if we're renting?" Lucas paused, considering. Actually, with the current market, the monthly mortgage payment would be less than rent for a place this size. He hesitated, then added, "if we bought it together." The weight of the suggestion hung between them. Buying a house together was a much bigger commitment than sharing a rental. "Let's talk to a mortgage broker," Tessa said after a moment. "See what our options are." That evening, after the children were asleep in their respective apartments for the last time that weekend, Lucas and Tessa sat on the floor of his living room with calculators, bank statements, and cups of tea, working through the financial reality of buying a house together. "With both our incomes and my company's stock as collateral, we should qualify for a decent rate," Tessa said, reviewing the preliminary figures they'd received from the broker. "The down payment is the bigger challenge." Lucas nodded, running calculations for the renovations the house would need. "I can do most of the work myself, which saves on labor, and I know suppliers who can get us materials at contractor rates." They worked in companionable silence for a while, each focused on their part of the planning. Lucas found himself marveling at how natural it felt to be making such significant decisions together. There was none of the anxiety he'd expected, just a steady certainty that they were building something lasting. "Lucas," Tessa said suddenly, setting aside her paperwork. "Before we go any further with this, I need to ask you something." The seriousness of her tone made him look up. "What is it? Are you sure about this? About us? I know everything has moved quickly, and buying a house is a huge step." Lucas set down his calculator and took her hands in his. "I've never been more sure of anything," he said honestly. "When Alina died, I thought that part of my life was over. I focused on being a dad, on working, on just getting through each day. I never expected to find someone who would fit into our lives so perfectly." He squeezed her hands gently. "You and Ethan make us whole again." Tears welled in Tessa's eyes. "I was so busy proving myself as a CEO, as a single mom, that I forgot to make room for joy, for connection." She smiled through her tears. "You remind me every day what really matters." Lucas pulled her into his arms, overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings for this remarkable woman. "I love you, Tessa," he whispered against her hair, saying the words aloud for the first time. Tessa drew back to look at him, her eyes shining. "I love you too," she replied, her voice steady and sure. "So yes, let's buy a house together. Let's build this family we've started." 2 weeks later, their offer on the house was accepted. They signed the paperwork together. Equal partners in the investment, each contributing what they could. Tessa more of the down payment, Lucas the promise of sweat equity to increase the property's value. The children were ecstatic, counting down the days until the move. On the morning of closing day, Lucas arrived at the community center early to complete some maintenance tasks before taking the day off. He found Maria waiting for him with an unexpected proposal. The board approved the expansion of the aquatics program, she informed him. We need a full-time director to oversee all the classes, including the asthma swim program. The position comes with a significant salary increase and benefits. Lucas was stunned. Are you offering me the job? You're the obvious choice, Maria said confidently. You have the technical skills, you connect well with the participants, and you understand the center's mission. But I don't have a degree in recreation management, or you have 10 years of practical experience and certifications that matter more, Maria interrupted. Plus, you care. That's something no degree can teach. As Lucas drove to the closing appointment, his mind raced with possibilities. The new position would mean regular hours, better pay, and work he genuinely enjoyed. Combined with Tessa's more balanced schedule at Harrington Innovations, they could create the stable family life both had worked so hard to achieve. At the title company, he found Tessa waiting nervously outside. Everything okay? She asked, noticing his expression. Better than okay, he replied, explaining Maria's offer. I'd still do handyman work occasionally, I enjoy it, but this would be my main focus. Lucas, that's wonderful. Tessa embraced him, her pride evident. You deserve this recognition. As they signed the multitude of documents that would make the house officially theirs, Lucas felt a profound sense of gratitude. Just 6 months ago, he had been a struggling single dad helping a stranger's son breathe in the park. Now he was buying a home with a woman he loved, building a family that encompassed all their hopes and dreams. That evening, they brought the children to see their new house empty, needing work, but brimming with potential. As Mia and Ethan raced from room to room, planning adventures and claiming spaces, Lucas and Tessa stood in what would become their living room, her head resting against his shoulder. Welcome home, he said softly, his arm around her waist. Tessa looked up at him, her eyes filled with the same wonder he felt. It needs a lot of work, she observed, glancing at the dated fixtures and worn floors. Good thing you found yourself a handyman, Lucas replied with a smile. The best thing I ever found, Tessa corrected him, rising on tiptoe to kiss him. Even if I was clueless at the beginning. 1 year later, the house on Maple Street had transformed. Lucas had indeed worked his magic, replacing fixtures, refinishing floors, and painting every surface. Tessa had proven surprisingly adept at demolition, wielding a sledgehammer with CEO precision when they renovated the kitchen. The children had helped plant a garden in the backyard, where a small but sturdy treehouse now stood, a weekend project that had brought the whole family together. On a perfect September evening, Lucas stood in that backyard, watching as friends and family gathered for a housewarming party that doubled as a celebration of another milestone. Mia and Ethan raced around with their friends from school and the swim program, their breathing strong and steady after a year of consistent management. His colleagues from the community center chatted with Tessa's team from Harrington Innovations, worlds blending seamlessly. Penny for your thoughts? Tessa appeared beside him, slipping her hand into his. Just marveling at how far we've come, Lucas replied, squeezing her hand gently. The ring on her left finger caught the setting sunlight, a simple but elegant diamond they had chosen together last month. I keep thinking about that day in the park. My most important business meeting ever, Tessa joked, though I didn't know it at the time. Lucas turned to face her, still amazed by the love he saw reflected in her eyes. Who would have thought a random asthma attack would lead to all this? I'm just glad you noticed, Tessa said softly. That you stopped to help when so many people would have walked by. Best decision I ever made, Lucas replied, pulling her close. From across the yard, Maria called for their attention, raising a glass in toast. To Lucas and Tessa, who prove every day that family is built on love, not circumstances. And to their upcoming wedding, may it be as beautiful as the home and life they've created together. Cheers erupted from their gathered friends. Mia and Ethan beamed with pride from their place of honor near the adults. They had been the first to know about the engagement, had helped Lucas plan the proposal during a family hike at the same park where it all began. Their enthusiasm for the wedding, still 3 months away, had yet to wane. As the party continued around them, Lucas held Tessa close, overwhelmed with gratitude for the life they'd built together. From a chance meeting born of crisis, they had created something beautiful and lasting. Their different worlds had merged into one shared reality, richer and more meaningful than either had imagined possible. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. CEO, mom, demolition expert, and soon-to-be wife. Tessa laughed, the sound still his favorite music. "And I love you, swim director, handyman, father, and soon-to-be husband." Around them, their blended family thrived, 2 children who had become siblings in all but name, breathing freely in the love that surrounded them. And 2 adults who had found in each other not just partners, but true equals in the shared journey of creating a home where everyone could breathe easier.